Good morning, actually. This is Black Press USA's Fire. The National Newspaper Publishers Association welcomes the chairman of the Black News Channel, J.C. Watts. J.C. is also the co-founder and chair. He is the co-founder and chairman of the Black News Channel, which is an independent network that is minority owned and operated, and it is the nation's only provider of 24/7 cable news programming dedicated to covering the unique perspective of African American communities. And we know JC has a lot of titles under his belt as chairman of Watts Partners, and we can go on and on. Let's just bring him in. How you doing, JC?
Stacy, I'm doing well. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. It's great to have you. And, I just want to jump right in because, the Black News Channel obviously began in February. And obviously there's a lot of naysayers. But since the launch, how would you compare February to now after a pandemic or during a pandemic, really still?
Well, Stacy, we have had to deal with COVID-19, the pandemic, just like everybody else. When we launched on February 10th, had I had any control over the pandemic, I would have said, could you hold off about 2 years and another year and a half before you show up, as opposed to a month and a half after we launched? We were right in the middle of it, and again, we've had to deal with it like everybody else. And fortunately, we've been able to establish a platform, a foundation that our people could work from home. We've stayed on top of it in our studios, and the CDC guidelines, we've been very strict about those. We've not had a lot of people come into our studios as outside guests. So we've kind of put some things in place that we've been able to deal with it. And we've continued to grow our distribution numbers, and all of that has worked out very, very well. So we've had to deal with it, but we have dealt with it. And we're still on the air, and we're still running, and that's a good thing. And
Yeah.
the premise that we started with, that we launched the Black News Channel with, to say that we wanted to have a network that was culturally specific to the African American community. That premise, that platform, that foundation remains, and it continues to be in place. And so we've made some good strides in spite of the pandemic.
Absolutely. And we know that COVID-19 has disproportionately affected Black America. And we know that saying, we keep hearing it. I hear everyone say it: when America catches a cold, Black folks catch pneumonia. But what's been the coverage like of COVID-19 for BNC? How has it differed?
Well, I think, Stacy, visiting with you and your association with NNPA, I think you can, capture the full meaning and appreciation for what I'm about to say. If you take the African American newspapers out of the national dialogue, the African American community would be impacted tremendously. COVID-19, when you deal with the pandemic, when you deal with the downturn of the economy, when you look at the things that impact the African American community, and it does impact other communities, the news channel has been, we've worked with the administration, we've worked with NIH, we've worked with the commission that was put forth, the task force to deal with the pandemic, the Surgeon General, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Brix. We've had everybody, all of those people on our network talking about COVID-19 and the African American community. We've had public service announcements, and I think when you take NNPA and how your members will report on the pandemic and the COVID-19, the pandemic, you look at how the Black News Channel, how we've had it as a central focus for our community, it makes a big difference. And in spite of the fact that we've been impacted differently with COVID-19. Think about how we would have been impacted had you not had NNPA talking about it on their platforms on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, as we have at the news channel. We talked about it on a daily basis. We've had PSAs, we've had people on trying to highlight the importance of following CDC guidelines, washing your hands, wearing the mask, that's critically important. And all in all, we've been able to say it's real. It's not a fake. It is real, and take it seriously. And I think that's, and just raising the conscience level, having a platform that we could raise the conscience level of our community, has reaped tremendous benefits for the African American community.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been amazing what we've seen the Black News Channel accomplish in such a short time under such circumstances. Also, Kelly Wright, one of your journalists, host, anchors, interviewed the president in the White House. What's been the difference in the coverage of the presidential race and the other races, for that matter, when we watch BNC as opposed to other networks?
Well, obviously, I think we've had candidates that, when you look at the dollars that was spent with NNPA in terms of trying to canvass the African American community, when you look at the dollars that political candidates or campaigns that they have spent on the news channel, obviously, we can make an argument that it should have been more. I think NNPA can make an argument that it should have been more. But the fact that they had venues to speak to our community, I think that's pretty significant. And I think one race that we all should keep our eye on is the race in South Carolina, the Senate race, Jamie Harrison versus Lindsey Graham. Jamie is in striking distance. You've had some polls that's had him down by 2 or 3 points. You've had some polls that's had him up by 2 or 3 points. You've had, he has spent more money with the Black News Channel than any candidate in the country. And I do think it's been.
Oh, I think we lost you, JC. There you go.
I think he's been, the fact that he advertised on the Black News Channel, I think that's been significant in helping him in his fundraising efforts to get his message out. And so I think this campaign, or this campaign cycle, has continued to, I think, point to the significance of our vote, our community, how we can move the dial if advertisers, including political campaigns, take seriously connecting with the African American community.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we had Jamie Harrison here on Fire last month, and we talked about the gains that he's made in South Carolina, unprecedented, of course. And as you clearly stated, when these candidates utilize and work with the Black press and the Black News Channel, good things happen. Look, we go back to South Carolina back in February. Joe Biden was about to essentially be knocked out of the race. And in a period of 24 hours, he interviewed with our president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis, on a live stream. And then the next day, he was endorsed by Jim Clyburn. And from there, he's never looked back. And he is the Democratic nominee, of course. JC.
And Stacey, and let me highlight what you said. Interviewing with Dr. Chavis, NNPA, Jim Clyburn endorsing him. I hope I don't want to overlook that and have our audience be cavalier and say, oh, that's just standard fare. That the interview with Dr. Chavis and the exposure that a candidate gets with your members, the exposure that someone gets on our network by being interviewed on our network, being interviewed by you, that is a huge deal for them. And until candidates understand that the African American vote is, or the African American community, it's not only significant in terms of moving the dial politically, if you can connect, but it's also important in moving the dial in terms of consumer products and advertising and so forth. So you guys have continued to beat that horn, but I think we've affirmed through the news channel what you guys have been saying for years.
193 years.
Yeah, to be exact. Okay.
To be exact. and you know, JC, you know, speaking of politics and the election, 5 days out, right? You've been in public office, you've run for public office and successfully. 5 days out, what is it like for a candidate?
Well, Stacey, 5 days. You've heard the old saying that 3 weeks is an eternity in a campaign. 5 days is an eternity in a campaign. And when your name is on the ballot, you get up, you go to bed every night, get up every morning thinking, what T's have we not crossed, what I's have we not dotted. I think Joe Biden, 5 days out, I don't know who's going to win. We're going to see the real poll that's going to be taken on next Tuesday, November 3rd. I don't know who's going to win, but there's also a saying that candidates have that, if you and I are running against each other, you would say, well, I'd rather be me than him at this point. Or I would say, I'd rather be me than my opponent at this point. And I think any analyst that looks at the numbers on a daily basis, that you kind of travel and do surveys and you do questionnaires trying to figure out what's going to happen on election day, I do think Joe Biden can honestly say today, without taking anything for granted, I think he can say, or would feel comfortable saying, I'd rather be me than the president at this point. Now, everybody wants to put a happy face on and make it look like everything is going great and we're going to win. But everybody, their internal polling, it's not lying to them. And I think their internal polling probably says to President Trump, he's down 2 or 3 points. I think Joe's internal polling would probably say he's up 2 or 3 points. So the main thing is Stacey, don't take, if I was advising either campaign, I would say don't take anything for granted. Work like you're a dollar behind and you're a dollar and a vote behind, and you work like that through November 3rd. And I think we've got experience of that in in 2016. We had a candidate that didn't work like she was behind and didn't work like she was a dollar short and took some things for granted. And at the end of the day, she surprisingly lost. I don't think the Biden campaign is doing that. And so Joe's got to feel pretty good about where he stands 5 days out.
Yeah. And we're talking to JC Watts, the chairman of the Black News Channel. As chairman, JC, how has your role with BNC evolved since the launch?
Well, Stacey, I have learned a lot pre-launch and post-launch. And although my degree is in journalism, I've never held myself out as a journalist. And as chairman, I've learned a great deal about ad sales, engineering, programming, personnel. It's been a wonderful experience. And I've operated more from a governance perspective, make sure we're sound in terms of our policies and governance and the economics of our network, that we're doing the right things, we're spending money wisely. But here in July, we brought a guy on by the name of Prince L. Hare that has been in the business for 35, 40 plus years. Just has a sound understanding of broadcasting, and he's a journalist. He's worked at every major network in the country, and we were tickled to get him. And I had a chance to observe him. He came in and consulted for us or with us for about the last 6 weeks, or the 6 weeks prior to launch. And we had a chance to observe him, and he was very collaborative, had a great temperament about him, had great institutional knowledge, knew a lot about engineering, personnel, programming, and we were convinced that he was the right guy. And when we were looking for a CEO, we were able to put together a package that we attracted him and got him on board. And so I've learned, Stacy, over the last 62 years that there's a difference in having an authority figure as your leader and having a leader as your leader. Princell's, he's a leader. He's good with young staff, with our young personnel. He's very collaborative. So we're excited about the future because of Princell here being in the CEO's chair, and we look forward to his leadership and getting us to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And JC, how successful has BNC been in growing its audience and taking advantage of the move of viewing audiences to internet streaming platforms? We know that's important.
It is important, Stacy, and of course, cord cutting is real. We've heard a lot about that. Streaming services, cord cutting, all of that is real. I still think it's probably, my guess, 3 to 5 years away from really taking hold. And however, linear, the Comcast linear, DirecTV, DishNet, Charter. Charter was the first company that signed on with us, that bought into the vision. That linear service is still where the action is. I think that's still where advertisers want to be, although everybody is developing these streaming services, the OTT, the Rokus, the Amazon Fire, people like that, TiVo Plus, Freecast. We're on all of those platforms as well, but right now, the dollars are still, by and large, following distribution on linear services. And when we launched, Stacy, we had about 2.5 million linear viewers. We had another 17.5 streaming viewers through Comcast, but Comcast has since, and on those 17 million viewers, people had to pay to get us, $2.99. And when you've got streaming, when you've got Roku and OTT platforms that you can go and find this free, we just didn't feel like that was a very good deal. So technically, we only had about 2.5 viewers. But since February 10th, we're a little over 41 million linear viewers. We're on about 170 plus OTT devices. And so from 2.5 to over 40 million on our linear platforms, that's quite a lot of growth. And it speaks well, I think, to our audience, our demographic, that people say we want a deeper relationship with the African American community. And we've held out all along that we could give them that, and that's been proven since February 10th.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our publishers out in Texas, Cheryl Smith, she writes in, she wishing BNC much success. It is imperative that we have tell our own stories and highlight stories that are important to us. Hope there could be more collaboration between BNC and NNPA. And
Well,
and you,
Cheryl,
yeah, you can
yeah,
respond.
Cheryl, thank you for that. And let me say, and Stacy, I don't say this to embarrass you or Dr. Chavis, but literally, there's no one that's been a greater ally, Cheryl, to the Black News Channel pre-launch and post-launch than NNPA. Dr. Chavis is, Stacy. I think we met back,
In New
I
York.
guess in New York. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably little under a year ago.
Yep.
Dr. Chavis had raised his hand from day one and said, "Hey, whatever we can do to help, whatever we can do to promote." And let me tell you, you guys have kept your word and more. Whenever we've called and asked you guys to assist us in some way, you all have been on the front line. So Cheryl, I only tell you that because it's the truth. NNPA has been a tremendous resource and advocate for what we're trying to accomplish at the Black News Channel.
And JC, what are some of the, or maybe one or two of the programs on BNC that, well, I want to use the term highest rated, but perhaps more popular, that you found to be very popular? And can you give us a summary of some of the programming viewers can find on the network?
Well, we've got a strong demographic trend with women, and I think that's because we have Ladies First, a show called Ladies First. We have Women Only. We have a show that I'm pretty excited about, Doctor for the People, Dr. Abear. Stacy, no network, you won't find any network out there talking about. We've talked about how COVID-19 has impacted our community, but sickle cell is something else that I'm involved in that impacts the African American community. About 98% of the people that suffer from sickle cell, they're African American. So we talk about those issues, and so I think those are some of the shows. Dale Walters has a show out of Washington that it's kind of a current affairs kind of show. Dale does a good job. Kelly Wright has a show, the Kelly Wright Show. Kelly's done, he's been a great host for us. So we've tried to do things, Stacy, and I think talk about things that you can't get on the other networks. Even other people will talk about, other networks will talk about what happened to George Floyd and the 8+ minutes that we saw a police officer with his knee on his neck. You can talk about that on other networks, but I think we provide a culturally specific worldview of Armand Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, simply because, and I say this respectfully to police officers because my father was a police officer. However, the African American community, we've had a different relationship with police forces than my white friends. I've had this discussion with my white friends. I've had, in spite of the fact that my father was a police officer, it's just a reality. We've had different relationships with police police officers than the white community has. And when you say law and order, that means different things to different people. Yeah. Obviously, if some mother that has children that she wants to make sure that her kids are going to be safe when they're riding their bicycles on the sidewalk or they're on the playground. She wants to make sure that they're safe. So there's a connotation of law and order in that circumstance. But law and order also means that in the 50s and 60s, people that look like you and me, we were harassed by police officers, and we did not have a trial by jury of our peers. And many times those people making arrests, they were Ku Klux Klan members.
Yeah.
And so, and again, I don't think that all police officers are bad. And I don't think that all black men, if you're inclined to believe that all black men are thugs, then now you can have 99 black men do great things, and that will be overlooked. All you need is one that will make a bad choice, and you say, see, I told you. That's confirmation bias. However, if you think that all police officers are bad, you can see 99 police officers do great things, and all it takes is for one to make some knuckleheaded decision, and you say, see, I told you that they're all bad. So I think you have to find the balance, but you have to start with, to understand the discussion we're having in the country, you have to understand the historical relationships that black communities, that people that look like us, that we've had with police forces. And it's not just in LA and New York, it's in Eufaula, Oklahoma, where I was born and raised, population 2,000 when I was there, about 2,800 today. I did not have good experiences starting in about the 5th or 6th grade with police forces. And so that's the reality. Your newspapers, our network, we can talk about those things and I think give color to current affairs or issues like that no other network can give.
Yeah, and I'll remain in moments with the co-founder and chair of the Black News Channel. Most people who know J.C. Watts know he was also, in addition to a politician, in addition to the chairman, a star athlete, a football player, quarterback out of Oklahoma. J.C., the sports season, the NHL, they crowned a new Stanley Cup champion in September. The NBA crowned a new champion, the Lakers, this month. And baseball got through a shortened 60-game, COVID-shortened 60-game season and crowned a World Series champion. For athletes, can you just briefly discuss how difficult that season under these circumstances might have been for these athletes?
Boy, Stacey, I can't imagine having to go through that. However, in spite of just the new environment that athletes are having to deal with, I think it probably was helpful for them in this respect that, I've said to our employees, obviously follow CDC guidelines when you get out, but get out, walk, exercise, do something that's physically challenging just for your mental health. These athletes, they might have been separated from their families, but I think, or they might have been in a bubble in terms of, the basketball team, but I think it was good in the sense that they were being active, they were exercising, they were moving around. They did have their colleagues that they could kind of call on and kind of, play cards or play checkers or dominoes or whatever. It was challenging. I don't want to make it look like it wasn't challenging from a mental perspective, because anytime you're separated from your wife and from your kids, that can be very stressful on the spouse and the family that they're separated from. But at the same time, I think they had ways of dealing with their stress. I think they had things that they could focus on. It's been tough on all of us being sheltered in, and here about a month and a half ago, I found myself dealing with cabin fever. Yeah. And and as a matter of fact, I joked with my wife and I said, man, if they ever close down Walmart, I'm in
Don't close down Walmart, please.
Don't close down Walmart. That became my mall. That's kind of well, when to get away and to get out. But it's been tough, and it's been tough on everybody. But again, I think they made the best of it under the circumstances in the midst of a pandemic, and I think the bubble was a good idea. I'm sure those players would say, we hope we don't have to do that again.
Yeah.
But they were able to continue doing things that they love, and taking care of their families financially in the midst of COVID-19.
Yeah, well, it's been a great half hour, JC. Obviously, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah,
but we really appreciate you stopping in today. Appreciate the Black News Channel. Keep up the great work, and we got to do this again.
Look, man, Stacy, I look forward to it when you see Dr. Chavis. Give him a fist pump for me.
You can count on it.
Right.
Thanks a lot, everybody. And on Tuesday night, Black Press USA is going to bring you wall-to-wall coverage of the election, the most consequential election in American history, many say. So we'll be here beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern. So join us, and certainly tune in to the Black News Channel for all of their outstanding coverage that they're going to be doing for the election. Everybody, thanks for joining us. JC, thanks again. Everybody stay safe and stay well.
Thank you, Stacey.